They can earmark every single plant and put it into the very good, the good, excellent, or very poor quality, like they do for crop tours, for 4 million plants in a single field. So march that forward with your social credit score. Now, there's going to be very good food or excellent food grown in the field. That'll be earmarked for those with really good credit scores. The poor, barely harvestable, that will be for you. That if you criticize or interfere with government policy or post something that runs awry of the current narrative. Put this in perspective. We have nations closing their borders because it's too cold to travel. In my wildest dreams on the global warming broiling planet, and we got this border crossings closed because of too cold.
And I'm listening to these people like Peter Thiel and Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all of them. They're all talking about the same singularity. So you're not going to have robot delivery, delivery robots rolling down the street with your sandwich and your high rise if there's, 30 or 40 poor people down there kicking it and breaking into it or, harassing it just because it's fun to harass the little robot. Because that's happening now. That's already happening. That's a reality of now.
And we're not even close to starvation. Once starvation comes in, or like real rationing of food, those things are toast.
Right.
No pun intended, but they will.
But think about places like China and Japan. Nobody's doing that to the robot there.
They'll be arrested in a second.
Because they have a total grip, a technological grip and a policing grip on the entire society. Not only that, they have been incrementalized over years to act a certain way based on some of their, older traditions. You can't say the same for the West. Everybody's losing whatever culture or tradition they had. It's gone. It's been replaced. In Japan, it's not a question of a lockdown of totalitarianism. They used a different system of, ancient behavior to continue that behavior on, and it seems to be working. So those are kind of two contrast ideas where the same thing is happening. So one went down the capitalist route and kind of more of a free and open society, yet they kept their traditions and behavior. The other one kept their traditions and behavior, but they went down a totalitarian, police state. But yet they're in a real similar place in 2025 as far as the way that civilization is unfolding. This is where it goes right here. This is kind of the peak of the point here. Immigration raids leave crops unharvested, California farms at risk, and they're pushing a bunch of those. However, at the same time, jobs are going up, and this is a unique article right here, and this is something that I predicted that we would have to do, and it seems like it's beginning to happen, is domestic labor renaissance. Native-born workers surge at record high as foreign-born plunge. And the reason for that is because there's a demographic change going on, and people are realizing that they're cutting off the free stuff. And that means more and more people are going to be forced to find a little bit of jobs that are out there. And unfortunately, these low-skilled jobs in the food industry is where it's at. So I'm not too scared that we're not going to there might be a hiccup in the food as far as this goes, but overall there'll be workers to do it. So I don't think that this, manufactured crisis is going to do anything.
I've seen so many incredible videos of farming being done by AI. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. We're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Right. And
That whole
there's the
thing of, oh, the
next
farm workers are going to, are you kidding me? They got
exactly.
autonomy. I'm really into the autonomy of the ag biz and how this is moving forward to replace. We are at the point now where they don't need a human in the field any longer.
No, you just need
Put that in
resources.
perspective. As of today, 2025, we no longer need a human in the field. Where they need the humans are to refill the petrol tanks for the trucks, the tractors, and anything that might be for maintenance, because currently there's no bipedal robots that come in and change a tire off of something. I'm sure they will have developed or in the process to develop a specific robot just to change tires on farm equipment. You got to realize farm equipment is not like changing the tire on your car. Or pulling the tire off of a rim and then putting it back on. Yeah, these robots are saying this is nothing. I mean, what they have in the farm fields already. I mean, they're
This
going
is a
through 4
joke.
million plants and cataloging them and zapping them with lasers and either targeting fertilizer onto them, or they're at the precision farming now with AI that they can go into a field with 4 million plants, catalog the entire field, know which weed species in, target those weeds with lasers to burn them, to get them out. They can earmark every single plant and put it into the very good, the good, excellent, or very poor quality, like they do for crop tours, for 4 million plants in a single field. So march that forward with your social credit score. Now, there's going to be very good food or excellent food grown in the field. That'll be earmarked for those with really good credit scores. The poor, I mean, barely harvestable, that will be for you. That if you criticize or interfere with government policy or post something that runs awry of the current narrative. This is where we're going already today. This is how the fields are being, and the people that are required for the human labor are the ones that are filling the pesticides, recharging the batteries off the machines, again, putting fuel in it, making sure that the tires are pressurized. Those are all human activities. After that leaves the garage area, there's no humans any longer. It's purely AI out in the fields, tilling, planting, weed maintenance, fertilizer maintenance, and everything in between that entire process. There's not a single human involved anymore. So when you say, oh, they're going to come and they're not going to go to work, okay, big deal. These companies that can come up with billions of dollars on their stock valuations, they're going to roll hundreds of millions into these robotic systems. So as far as I'm looking, humans are no longer needed in agriculture. So they could go down to 100% zero, nobody else in the field, because right now that's what it's at. 100% zero people in the field. You don't need them anymore. But as soon as bipedal robots can take over those functions, even those people will not be needed any longer at the quote unquote like service hub bay or the service bays. So that's what they call them when the machinery comes back in from the field. So, I mean, we're at the point right now of complete phase out of human needs for any type of labor. So it brings me where we're going to go to the Bitcoin citadels that I've read about from the time traveler.
I don't even think they have to be bipedal, David. It's just like the Industrial Revolution. There's some guy somewhere coming up with the niche to fix that little problem that happens, just like they did in all manufacturing. So there's going to be a guy sitting there decide, well, how do we get that in there? And they already have all of these different tank things.
The robotic XYZ axis arms and stuff.
Yeah. They don't even have to be humanoid. That's the point. And I think they're showing those little goofy, boxing robots and soccer robots. That's all to keep you off guard, so that whenever you're completely immersed in the robotics, you won't even know it happened. It'll just be overnight.
Hailstorm forces airline to inspect 100 planes at major hub. So I'm looking through this here going, all right, this is on June 28th. It's just a few days back. Severe thunderstorm hits the world's busiest passenger airport. So this is Atlanta, Georgia, and that's about 4 hours south of where I live here. But the damage that's done, you got to think about this. World's busiest airport, and definitely for the United States, but hundreds and hundreds of aircraft need to be inspected after this event. This is what was talked about with the ramp up in this grand solar minimum and the depleting magnetic field, and how it's just more about the jet streams and cloud flows go out of their normal patterns. And with this depleting magnetic field, there seems to be some correlation of the build and the updrafts and thunderstorms. It used to stop at a certain height, and it generally didn't grow further or in altitude in the types of updraft. But the hail size, and they talked about this in the spore minimum as well, that the hail size was just so gargantuan that when the hail came, it would crush wooden homes into the mud, where when you surveyed after some of these storms that came through with such ferocity, that there was not a visible village left, that the wooden homes had been pulverized and smashed into the mud to the point that there was not a standing village any longer there. But what was the mechanism of this? And if we go back to, biblical accounts or prehistoric accounts, or if you talk about the Chinese with their records, and especially the Arab traders, what they'd seen, moving across vast distances of Africa, the Middle East, India, and all the way into China and what we consider Asia, they talked about the same ferocious types of storms on different occasions as well. So there's some mechanism definitely behind this in terms of gigantic hail that's coming through. I don't know what to tell you, Ransom, but we are definitely on the cusp here of having another gigantic, disruptive weather pattern. And as the biblical stories talk or forecasted, prophecy from others through realms, talk about things getting to the size of bowling balls for the hail. So for me, if I'm looking at a 50,000 foot, cumulonimbus apex anvil head is what they call that when it reaches up to a certain height, when it gets up above, it's sort of toward a mesosphere. They call it an anvil because it gets up and then it spreads, and it sort of looks like an anvil as it's bending. Yeah. At what point does it need to exceed up and actually scrape the mesosphere before we get this type of updraft hail that they speak about, where it can come down larger than grapefruit size, literally half of a watermelon or a bowling ball size? Because the way that hail is made is it's caught, the raindrops fall, it recirculates, gets the updraft, pulls it back up, and it gets another layer of ice. So when you look at hail, at least the larger stones, if you cut it across, it very much looks like a tree ring. So when you look at this type of incredible ferocity that keeps increasing by the year, at what point does this stop?
This whole year is funny to me because I'm looking
Wait a second. Let me finish this one thought. I mean, is this the real reason that they're trying to get us to stop flying and try to introduce that idea that flights are bad? Or is it that we're coming to this point now where hailstorms are going to start taking down flights so frequently that we just aren't going to be want to fly in the skies? So, take that as the beginning of the second hour of what you will.
What do you think happens if you're flying around when the magnetic field is collapsed down closer to Earth and you're way up there? You're getting fried. It already happens now. Imagine what it would happen if it was considerably less of a magnetic field around Earth. You'd be getting fried a lot in those airplanes. And I don't know. That could be that. And I was going to link to that. So right here, you got the whole map here, and I want to put it on the lightning.
The lightning mapper is a good one. I forget what that is. GOES 18 is a lightning mapper, or is it GOES 16? I can't remember.
This is just the MSNBC or whatever it is, MSN weather. But when you click on the precipitation or lightning, you see this weird thing. Look at across the entire globe. It's centered around the United States right now. All of this electricity right here, and then you see it in the same latitudes all the way across the world.
Yeah, it's the same latitude, isn't it? Yeah, that's got to be the electrified band that's increasing as well.
And it's on the mountain ranges.
Mm.
But here, this is what I was trying to say to you when we were off. You see this?
Right, it is. I was looking at the Alps over there in Europe too.
This green blotch right here. So this is right next to me. So in this valley between Truth or Consequences and Carrizosa, I live right here. So I watch these supercells form right about here. Here's one coming up soon. Matter of fact, a whole line of them. So they're going to come and they're going to get bigger right here. and they stop right here. This is Sierra Blanca next to Three Rivers, where all of the petroglyphs are, and there's a whole lava flow right here. So there's a lot of weird activity as far as geologic, electric, weather. But once this storms usually hit here, they might go up this direction. But almost every time I see them build in my area, somebody in Oklahoma dies of a tornado, or Missouri or Illinois, all the way up into Chicago. We watch these things. And here's another little area where they start right here, and they just roll through Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and stuff like that. So almost every time. And this is what's going on. We're on a different cycle this year. This is our monsoon right here, is what you're looking at. So this monsoon's coming in here, and people are whining over in Europe about triple digits and stuff. Well, last year and the year before that and the year before that, where I live, it was really hot, but right now it is 78 degrees. Nice and cool. Every morning's been cool. We've been getting showers. I think we've been getting up into maybe 90 degrees, which is really low temperatures for our area. Be really cool here in the Southwest right now, especially at nighttime. It's going to drop down. I think it was like 62 degrees into the 60s. Yeah, there's 68, 69 degrees. Really mild temperatures for the Southwest because we're having monsoon. But yet they're complaining over here, in a place where it's normally this temperature over here, they're crying because it's hot. And you notice this weather up here, barely any lightning. So you can kind of, I don't know, who studies this, but it looks like to me, and this is, I don't know anything. I'm not trying to say I know anything, but it looks like the earth is really electrified around these areas where mountains are next to lowlands. So like right at the border of the mountains and the lowlands, because you'll see the same thing down here. This is Mexico City. This is where the mountainous areas are, the volcanoes and stuff. Down here is where the continental plates are pushing together and you get these massive mountains. But yet right on the other side of it, you see this big water blotch with no lightning in it that's out there in the Amazon basin. So all this water goes up, it hits this, it gets electrified. And I don't know if this is what's happening, but it sure does seem like this little cone right here pulls these hurricanes right over here.
Well,
Like an electric charge.
That same phenomenon is happening right there with Pakistan heading up into the Himalaya. So when you look at that, I've covered a fair few bunch of stories right when, you're going to go a little more west past New Delhi up there. Yeah. But we had that whole range of the Himalaya there. There seems to be that band coming off Pakistan as well, and Afghanistan too, where those storms are starting to come on a different flow and they're hitting right in there, and then boom, they just stop off. Yeah, rare Atlantic La Nina has emerged, and this is coming up on the 19th of June. So this is a rare thing. You just try to direct me and point me over to that same direction. So I'm just following on your thought. When you had the lightning there,
yeah.
Notice that this very rare La Nina formation, usually it's in the Western or in the Eastern Pacific, could go to the Western Pacific, depends on how far it gets out toward Indonesia. But notice the plumes and the waves coming off. It's both in the Pacific and in the Atlantic. But notice that cool that is not normally there. That's off of West Africa.
Right.
This is dampening any type of hurricane formation at the moment. So the gray that you're seeing right here on my mouse, that's South America, and then over here, and we come on to Western Africa. So the temperature variance here and the pressure differential is something that is incredibly rare to see, and it's dampening any type of hurricane formation. And look at this, Atlantic Nino or Nina, depending on the Nino, the heat, and the Nina is the cooling effect. But as we look, and these are time immemorial traders that are on commodities push these things, but they're confused right now because this is such a rare event. And here's what the latest on the at least 16th of June on what NOAA was looking at, and this has intensified since. But you can see those black boxes right there. That colder than normal water coming off of West Africa is something that is only been seen 3 times in the last 120 years. So when you look at something like this, if you're going to say that, okay, it's a 40-year pattern, or is it something different that is starting to amplify, and this is orders of magnitude above what would be already on that 40-year pattern? Because look at off of Baja and Mexico over there heading up into California, how cool the water temperatures are. You're talking 1 to 2 degrees Celsius, which is, a good three. I'm going to just say 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a huge, huge difference for water temperature. Air temperature, maybe not so much, but for water, that's very significant. And then you can see how this year, there hasn't been any hurricane, no formation yet. And then you look at the black box here, and you can see why. Because this is generally where it starts to get its heat formation and, build from there. The energy
Right.
comes off of it. So where's your lightning sit inside this now? Or doesn't it?
That's what I was showing there. But it would be curious to go look at whenever those hurricanes are forming coming in there, if there wouldn't be less lightning over here in the Americas, where you see just like a ton of it right now. It's just wow. Another thing, think about this. We're finally getting to see in a domino effect what Tunga actually did to the atmosphere. So people expected this, immediate dramatic change, but actually that water was up there and then it started circulating. So you got all these cycles that got disrupted by having a bunch more water in it. So it takes time for you to see the end result of that. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it. All I know is I'm enjoying a nice, cool summer here in the Southwest.
There's been a stratospheric warming event in Antarctica this time. So stratospheric warming events generally are where there's a high pressure system that takes over and usually knocks something out of the way. And that's why they call it stratospheric warming, because it's higher altitude and then it moves, that displaces the cooler air. So what you're looking at here is this displacement in real time. So that Antarctic polar air is going to get knocked out somewhere and move. And you can see the displacement happening right here. Usually that cold will center right over Antarctica during the season. But as we have with sudden stratospheric warming events here in the Northern Hemisphere as well, once that gets knocked off, this is why we'd have those incredible, incredible record cold events that had permeated all the way down. That's why we had all that snow this year down in the panhandle of Florida. We got a stratospheric warming event. That same high pressure knocked all the cold out of its regular centered position and sent it south. And this time it happened to come over the United States. Other times it happens over Asia. And, it just depends where it is. It'll spin. Perhaps that'll come all the way down to North Africa. But this warming event is also something of the extreme. Like if you're looking at the amount of displacement in terms of temperature and, full surface area that was displaced in terms of millions of square miles, this is something on the record level as well. So anywhere from 20 miles up further at 50 millibars up. But you can see how this thing is taking shape and form, and this cold air has not displaced completely yet, and they're unsure exactly how deeply it's going to go up into South America. But if I digress here and I show you this article, and I'm going to share this tab here coming off of right here. This is where it's being displaced to. Argentina closes the border crossing as record-breaking polar wave sweeps across Chile. And that's exactly what was happening. Displacing all that cold air straight over. It's actually moved up into southern South America. So this displacement, it will be exactly the same as we had with our incredible record cold temperatures and snowfalls and all these things that we saw across southern Mississippi, Alabama, Florida with this record snow this year is exactly the same thing they're experiencing right now. Put this in perspective. We have nations closing their borders because it's too cold to travel. In my wildest dreams on the global warming broiling planet, and we got this border crossings closed because of too cold. This is something so outside the normal. This is like and if you're talking like 6 sigma deviation, there's probably like a 10 sigma event here. Polar wave, so cold that Chile and Argentina close everything because it's so dangerous for anybody to be outside at the moment. So you got to realize the Antarctic cold gets a little bit colder by about 20 degrees Fahrenheit, cooler than the Arctic temperatures do. And that much displacement of that much cold, nearly at the record displacement that's ever been measured, forced onto this area, we're reaching so many different records. And, just wind it right back to the Atlantic La Nina. And then we have this or the Antarctic displacement, southern polar region displacement. I mean, we really just jumped the shark on this thing. I don't know what to tell you, but something in the mechanics of it all has shifted. Where does that leave us politically then, or food price wise? Like, who knows this cycle is here? And then why are all these stipulations being put upon mankind of how you can behave or not, what you can consume, where you can travel, why you can do this, you can fly here, you can do that. Oh, wait, you can't say that. You got to be over here. You got to. All this happening in unison at the same time is a little bit difficult. Like I say, for me to believe that they're not interrelated somehow.
I was wondering when you were showing all those maps and we were looking at that little kind of cold spot off of the Ivory Coast right there. What happens if that moves north at the same time one of those cold blotches moves south in the Atlantic? Is that something to do with the AMOC? I mean, because they keep bringing up that article over and over again. If circumstances are just right from the ice melt, blah, 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 it'll pour in there. It'll get cold real fast. The salinated water will be different.
That's decades in the making of, even if you were to see some sort of substantial change in, ocean temperatures from that freshwater pulse, flowing into there, you're talking at least a decade. It's not going to be an instantaneous thing. So those movies where it's like an overnight change.
No. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I just
really,
meant
it's not like
the
that.
thing.
I mean, you got to realize you're trying to change ocean salinity by melting ice that freezes and melts every single year on a pattern anyway. So to try to go over that enough to make a substantial change on the amount of, melt water coming in fresh, for example. I mean, the scales of it is just so mind-bogglingly gigantic that to have an effect, by the time you poured all that in there with the mixing, by the time it circulated around and, you finally got to that dispersion rate where it might have some sort of effect in the upwelling or downwelling. I mean, you're talking at least a decade before, there's no instantaneous movement in an ocean like that.
So maybe like
surface waters, yeah, but we're talking going down thousands and thousands of feet of circulation.
Well, here's the theory. I just kind of sent it over to you to read it. So
Yes,
basically,
the AMOC.
they're saying the whole thing would be 1,000-year cycle, yet that cycle would probably be ending about 2030.
It tends where's the okay. So if you look at some of these meltwater pulses is what they call them. I meltwater pulse
Right.
A and B, and who is the guy with the beard? Randall Carlson always talks about meltwater pulse A and meltwater pulse B. Well, that was from the comet hitting the ice sheet, and there was instant melting of a glacier, and all that water subsequently like flowed in at one time. But that is something that we have not experienced. If there is a meteor or some sort of comet fragment that comes in and hits on an ice sheet somewhere, there's no ice sheets on the planet today. So to try to even get that level of water to flow in a single event is nigh impossible in our world. There's just not that much available ice to melt off of landmass, regardless of the cause. We can't get that type of instantaneous flow in.
Right. It's the same
We're
reason
talking like
that
2-mile deep ice across Canada when that fragment hit, and it melted a huge portion of that. Or not even a huge portion,
Right.
but like, let's just say a 16th of it melted and all came in one day or 1 week. We're nowhere close to that. We're like drip. It was like putting an eyedropper in the ocean, compared to pouring a glass of water in it. He does look like a real life Santa. I agree. So does Ted Marchildon at Omega Garden. AMOC is a slow moving current. Yep.
But the thing
Well, that's
is
your note. Oh, you're so smart, man.
I did no, I'm just putting that up there to joke around. I've read papers that say though that the end of the cycle could happen within decades. It's not about how much water flowed in it. It's about the particular temperature change that's caused by the amount of runoff from a summer, from just one summer, depending on other factors, obviously. But those are all theories. But the crazy part is that they really don't know. This is like the more and more I read about science and theories that they have is that they really just don't know.
Yeah, they don't. Nobody really knows because we've never lived through one of those events. And until we do, would it be the true history that we are being given or allowed to know about?
Never get left out in the cold. There is never a reason to ever let you or your family suffer. Instafire and Civilization Cycle are on a mission to make fire starting and off-grid living easy for everyone. You shouldn't have to be a mountain man to strike a flame and make a fire anytime, anywhere.